Joe Biden is expected to tap Jeff Zients to replace the outgoing White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain. Now, the move has been slammed by progressives for a reason. Well, Zients has a history of profiteering from healthcare, it appears. Yes, that's right. So Revolving Door Project Executive Director Jeff Hauser explained this. Americans are appalled by profiteering in healthcare. Jeff Zients has become astonishingly rich by profiteering in healthcare. Americans are aghast at how social media companies have built monopolies and violated privacy laws. Zients served on the board of directors of Facebook as it was defending itself against growing attacks from both political parties. Now, an article in the American Prospect last year also detailed Zients' exploits in the healthcare industry. It said this: Zients, who was replaced as COVID-19 response coordinator back in April, has controlled, invested in, and helped oversee healthcare companies that were forced to pay tens of millions of dollars to settle allegations of Medicare and Medicaid fraud. They have also been accused of surprise billing practices and even medical malpractice. Taken together, an examination of the companies that made Zients rich paints a picture of a man who seized on medical providers as a way to capitalize on the suffering of sick Americans. In the end, it seems to have all paid off. The most egregious violation is documented in a 2015 Justice Department settlement announcement. Portfolio Logic, the investment firm Zients founded with his own money, agreed to pay almost $7 million to resolve allegations of fraudulent Medicare and Medicaid billing involving a subsidiary that it purchased in 2007. It really seems like either Biden is not taking issue with someone who makes a profit off of the American people when they are suffering in terms of medical needs, or maybe kind of just doesn't care. I really don't know. Cenk?
Yeah, so context is important here. The funny thing, tragic thing is that he was considered among the moderates that Biden could have picked. So there were two other chief of staff possibilities that were far more pro-corporate than this incredibly wealthy finance guy. Okay, so that's the world we live in. So which, again, massively pro-corporate caretaker would you like to run the government? So this guy is, 7 out of 10 on that scale, as opposed to the other guys who were 9.5 out of 10. On that scale. By the way, to add extra trouble to this, they're basically saying, and it's amazing how brazen it is, and no one that's reporting it is acting outraged at all, that Biden is basically gonna shift his attention to getting reelected going forward, and this new guy is gonna run the country. Oh, okay, great to hear. Well, I guess I'm happy he didn't pick the 9.5 out of 10 conservatives, right? But here, more context. Ron Klain is the chief of staff for the first 2 years. He's stepping down now. Ron Klain was pretty good. He's, I don't know, a 6 out of 10 on the corporate scale, right? You're not gonna get a progressive, of course not, right? But Ron Klain was considered pretty good to really good to progressives because he would listen to them. It's like the Washington standard is. Remember, at least half the Democratic Party is progressive. They're like, we have listened to people who represent half our voters some of the time. Whoa, that's why Klain was a legend. Okay, this new guy, not as much, not as much. So look, on the Medicare and Medicaid fraud, I have two thoughts about it. Look, they bought a subsidiary. Did they do it before they bought it or after they bought it? How much was this guy involved in the day-to-day operations? Because I want to be fair. If he was like Rick Scott and he basically ran the company, then it's 1,000% on him. If it was something that they did, that company did before they bought him, well, I don't know that you should have bought him, but hey, that's a little bit of a different equation. So those details are not clear. But by the way, the second point here is, this is why Democrats are so soft on Republicans. So Rick Scott his company committed the largest Medicare fraud in American history. It was just one of the, forget Medicare fraud, it was one of the biggest robberies in American history. And Democrats almost never criticize him on it. Why? Because sometimes their chief of staff to the president of the United States of America has done similar things. So they neutered themselves because they're also pro-corporate. And this is the uniparty that we have. And they go back and forth, back and forth. But at the end of the day, Adrian, the most salient fact is that they're not gonna do anything for the next 2 years anyway, right? It's not like Biden can pass something through a Republican House. That's got an approximately 0% chance of happening. It's not like Biden was that, Democratic to begin with. He largely agrees with this chief of staff. He agrees with the other guys he would have hired too, the ones that were 9.5 out of 10 conservative, right? And he didn't really want to do half his agenda anyway. He made sure that $15 minimum wage was killed right out of the gate. He did that, not the Republicans. So Biden's gonna be super happy doing absolutely nothing for the next 2 years. Anyone telling you otherwise was weirdly lying to you, probably to appease the powerful.
Absolutely. And for some reason in our country, we really revere people who are wealthy, and we revere them so much that we really don't necessarily care how they got their wealth, even if it meant they got over on the American people and took advantage and exploited us. And maybe it's because the country is founded upon exploitation of a people's. I really don't know, but I know that it's disgusting and it's detrimental. But it doesn't seem that Biden really has that problem with Zients, even though his performance when he was in government also seems to be criticized. We know this, that the Zients-led COVID response, it refused to challenge Big Pharma's monopoly control in the US and globally over technologies that relied crucially on public support. And as a result, the United States and other rich countries failed to expand vaccine supply sufficiently to meet global need. But of course, on the flip side, that during his term as COVID-19 response coordinator, Zients was far and away the wealthiest member of Biden's cabinet, disclosing assets worth at least $89.3 million and as much as $442.8 million. Wow, that's a nice little gap there. Leaves a lot of wealth potential, I'm sure. It just, again, it's astonishing how much we revere individuals who have considerable amounts of money, even if they got it doing the most dastardly and, as far as I'm concerned, embarrassing things. Cenk?
Yeah, Adrian, it's, to me, I don't really care about the money, right? So the establishment thinks that if you have money, that means by definition, you're a very successful person. Oh, go revere them all, the great men with all of their money, right? Oh, come on. We've seen them make 1,000 mistakes, let alone 1,000 things that they did with bad intent, right? On the other hand, having money doesn't make someone evil. Oprah's got money, LeBron's got money. A lot of different people have money, right? It's the question is, what do you do with that money and how did you earn that money? Look, in his particular case, again, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Different people, and some whom you can trust, etc. And take this one with whatever grain of salt you want, and I'm sure the Republicans will go nuts over it. But for example, Dr. Fauci says he's enormously competent, and it's really important to have a competent chief of staff. Well, that's true, okay? So that's your upside for him. On the other hand, he's among the people who made sure, as Adrian pointed out, that the healthcare companies did not give the vaccine out globally at reduced prices. Because God forbid they would have cut into profits at all. It's possible that millions of people died because of that, not in America, but outside of America. But here in America, hardly a peep, hardly a peep. Biden pretended that he was in favor of the forcing the companies to give their vaccine across the world, but it was a total joke. He did not enforce that at all. He did absolutely nothing to push that forward, and the companies were like, no, we choose profits over human beings' lives. And Zients was perfectly comfortable with that. Why? Because he made a fortune from healthcare companies. So this is not that complicated. Okay, so yes, that's a problem. Finally, look, Ron Klain was smarter too. Why? Because he met with progressives. Did progressives get anything? No. No, I think look, in a lot of ways, if I'm being honest with you guys, and I am, progressives are kind of humiliated in the first 2 years. Oh, we're gonna give you $15 minimum wage, voting rights, paid family leave, Green New Deal. Oh yeah, we're gonna be FDR 2.0. And then when it actually came to pass, they're like, no, we're not gonna give you a goddamn thing. Here's a couple of crumbs off a Green New Deal. Go enjoy it, but we're not giving you anything else, okay? And then progressives have to be like, oh, thank you, sir, thank you, sir. See, that's smart politics by Ron Klain. It's not good for the country, but at least it's smart. These guys instead are going to be antagonistic for, oh, don't let this do. But what difference does it make? Are progressives going to fight back against Biden? Unfortunately, approximately 0% chance of that as well.